Welcome to the Grow Your Law Firm podcast, brought to you by Pilma. This podcast helps lead lawyers to more growth, profit, and freedom. Here is your legal marketing expert and host, Ken Hardison.
Well, hello, everyone. This is Ken Hardison, and welcome to another episode of Grow Your Law Firm. And today we have the honor and pleasure having Tanner Jones with Consultwebs. And Consultwebs is a SEO company that's been in business, my gosh, over 20-something years. Mm-hmm. And they handle all types of online marketing, digital marketing, whatever you want to call it. All types of law firms with a specialty, I think, in personal injury law firms. So welcome aboard.
Thanks, Ken. Glad to be here.
Yeah. And the reason I wanted Tanner on, he's been on before, but he always gets some of the best reviews at our summit every year. He speaks, and the lawyers, they just love it because he doesn't try to sell, and he just gets great value, good information, and it's stuff that they can take home and use, whether they use him or not. So thank you for that too, Tanner. So today we were talking about this before we went on recording, and we'll talk about, like, from one end of the spectrum to the other, like if you're just getting started or you're a small law firm, you can't afford to spend $20,000 a month on SEO. You got a small budget, to the other end of the spectrum where you got a healthy practice and you want to dominate. And what are the bells and whistles or different things you can do to add to just the foundational issues of foundational SEO?
Ken, this is such a huge topic, man. And we've talked about these things before. I know in your mastermind groups, these are conversations you're having on a monthly basis, kind of stair-stepping success for firms. And, once you achieve this threshold, you're looking at what's that next rung of success. What are these other concepts of marketing that we need to consider? I think the big thing here is every law firm is starting at a different place. And that's important to acknowledge because, as you said, a young law firm, maybe you've just pulled away from a bigger law firm, you're ready to hang your own shingle, you're starting at a very different place than a 3-attorney firm, that has 60 combined years in the PI field and heavy advertising and marketing in place. So acknowledging that allows you to first kind of start looking at what is the foundation? What is every law firm out there, virtually every business out there, what do they need to consider as a starting place or a foundation? And then how do you build on that? I know you and I have talked about how there are a lot of law firms out there that in getting started, they may have found a cheap alternative for a website. And oftentimes, even if you're not a designer, most people, when they visit a website, they get the impression of, this is a quality business, or they've kind of went the shortcut route of the website. It's inferior to the marketplace. That is something that most people will acknowledge. And so knowing that, you should see your website as the hub for everybody. The hub with your website is going to attract traffic from people who already know about you. They're just going online and maybe find a contact number, or they just want to find out if you handle a certain practice area, but they're certainly coming there and they're making a judgment on your business in that experience. So that is obviously a good place to start. Now, before even that, from a marketing standpoint, I strongly encourage firms to really have their brand tightened up. And so what does that even mean? So if you're not in the marketing world or you really don't have much experience in this area, brand really comes down to your unique value as a business. Who are you serving? So understand first and foremost your demographic, the practice area type, whatever that is. Who are you serving specifically and where? But then also, why are people hiring you? Why should people choose to hire you? That's the unique value proposition. And it's the DNA of your business, your core values, your mission, your vision. These are often things that are overlooked. Law firms can jump right into marketing and not even consider the first thing about brand and who they are. So get that in order. Make sure that you have that aligned. If you don't even know where to start with Ken Hardison. Ken will be able to guide you in that process and even connect you with people who can go as deep as you need to go in that process. But get that lined up first. The next thing I would consider, even before investing in a website at this point, is making sure you have a consistent way to answer your phone if and when it rings. This should not be neglected. This should not be the last thing you consider after you've started your marketing, but one of the first things. Who answers the phone? What's the process? What are they saying? How are they answering and responding to the questions being asked about your business? Most importantly, what is your sign-up process? How do you build confidence and win confidence when someone calls into your firm? If you have all that lined up, you have a good process around it, you are absolutely ready to start this foundation. And again, I go back to the website. So with the website, there's some basic elements here. We talked about earlier how some law firms have certainly taken some shortcuts with website. Well, shortcuts can mean a lot of different things. For a strong website, you want a quick loading website. It needs to be mobile friendly, as well as other, variations of size friendly. And that's usually how we refer to a website as responsive. So it's going to respond to the screen size of the user visiting. That should be first and foremost very important. If you're talking with a designer, make sure they're covering that. Site speed, what are their guidelines and standard process for ensuring a quick loading website? That should be another factor. Another thing would be related to the brand for the website. Your brand is truly represented within your design. We've often said this is your virtual office. So the same experience that you would want when someone walks into your office, that needs to be mirrored within your website. One of the best ways to do that is, again, reflecting the brand we talked about within the website through imagery, through video, through key messaging that hits on those unique value proposition, through credibility factors, things like awards, recognitions. We often use the term badge, but it's basically a badge of honor, a badge of award, any kind of credentials that you can showcase as individual attorneys or the law firm itself. Best of, you name the city. If you have those, feature those high in front on the website so that they're getting seen. These are all factors even before you start investing in marketing and advertising. You get the house in order, you get the hub right, you're going to be able to maximize the spend of marketing. So at that point, once you've established the website and the design itself, a video ideally that is talking about the unique value proposition, or even better, bringing in 1 to 2 testimonials, clients who've experienced your services, who say you're great, build that into the brand video and feature that within the website. Then you move to the content portion. People today certainly love to consume video content, but they'll also read content. Google will also read content, which is very helpful for search rankings over time. But content comes in the form of a lot of different types. So we often say there's practice area content, then you may have blog content, you may have a podcast or other forms of video content, but all of those are angles to build up the content and the resources on your website. The more useful resources you have on your website, the more opportunity you have of users finding you, but more importantly, staying around and trusting the brand. The major point of having such great resources on a website is to influence the trust factor of your brand. That's another thing, like there's so many stats out there that speak to individuals hiring businesses or choosing particular businesses because they know, like, and trust the people behind those businesses. And when you truly understand the psychology of that, it can get as complicated as you want it to be, but simplified, it's how can you create your website to be more personable, to be more relatable, to tell your story so that you can attract more of your herd, your ideal type of client. That's when you know you've secured a strong hub. So Ken, I'll stop there. Do you have any questions based on that in terms of what we see as the absolute must for a digital foundation?
Yeah, and I think I want to just your affirmation on this. You need to be consistent with, we're talking about one thing on brand, but also your fonts, your color scheme. I've seen law firms that use certain colors and fonts on their website, different on their letterhead, different on their social media. It's not consistent. So I think you can get right down that, like there's like 80 shades of green, 80 shades of blue. They got little numbers on them. And I'm not a graphic artist, but the deal is, I think you want everything to be cohesive. I consider that part of the brand too. I don't know. What do you think?
Absolutely. Yeah, no doubt. I think those are often the neglected, especially if you have multiple hands in the design or in this process. It's very easy to get inconsistent. I've even seen, and this may seem minor, but where a Google business listing may list the business in all caps, and then everywhere else on the web, it's not listed in all caps. That is an inconsistency in your brand. And again, that builds up. It's almost like you're building tokens with trust and confidence, with all of these small factors that add up. And a lot of people, like I'm from a values standpoint, my aesthetic is one of the lowest values, meaning I really, don't trust me to pick out matching clothes, right? And from a design, you do not want me designing your website. But even me with low aesthetic, I recognize some of these small things, even subconsciously, that diminish trust. Because if you're not putting that much emphasis around your brand, you're probably not going to put that much emphasis around me in my
Yeah.
case.
Yeah.
And that's what's implied.
And I think too, on the first page, I think they call it what do they call
Fold.
it? Above the fold. It's so important that you have something. You got about what, 3 to 5 seconds to catch somebody's attention, or don't they're gone.
That's
So you
right.
got to have something there that creates, like you said, the differentiator, however you want to say it, but something that makes them want to stay there. Like when I had my Carolina disability lawyers, I had a little video on the above the fold, and my headline was "How to Double Your Chances of Winning Your Disability Case," and it was a minute video, but then it shot them to something else. And so I was trying to keep them on that website because I didn't want them leaving, and I wanted them to engage, because there were one or two things. I want them to raise their hand, or at least get my bounce rate, which you could explain that you're better at, but I want them to be there because it's going to help me, my SEO, my rankings. And I think sometimes I just see lawyers that say personal injury lawyer. I mean, I don't know. I'm just saying, you got to have something that grabs their curiosity, or makes them want to, well, I want to know more. You know what I'm saying? Or this guy looks different. I want something different,
I'm glad. Yeah, I'm glad you're mentioning that, because it's so common for a law firm, even a PI practice, right, to have multiple, like you'll take several different areas usually, meaning I'll take a MVA, I'll take a commercial truck case, I'll take a premises liability, and under the sun of premises liability, I'll take a slip and fall likely, I'll take a negligent security, and the list goes on. Maybe I even have a work comp division or a social security disability division. To Ken's point here, to those listening, every one of those presents an opportunity to create a unique experience when a user lands on that particular section. And this is where a lot of law firms go wrong. And, for good reason. They don't necessarily know to challenge their designers and how they're setting this up. But as you said, Ken, it's a bland experience for a lot of users when they come in directly to, say, a commercial truck page or to a slip and fall page, because so much finesse and design effort has been applied to the homepage. And that is where a healthy amount of traffic leads to. But you also, as you're building out content around your practice, you're going to find that you're getting traffic into these key pages. And naturally, if a user's landing on your commercial truck page or your negligent security page, there's intentionality there. And there's high probability that they have some need related to that area. That's an obvious thing. In which case, why not uniquely and strategically feature all of the winning reasons why this practice area is, or why you are the best firm suited to be able to handle this particular practice area need. And you, Ken, made the note, which you've been wonderfully notorious for, utilizing assets like ebooks and different videos that just leave people wanting more. You give value first and it builds trust and they want more. If you're not featuring unique elements like that related to that particular practice area, I can confidently say you're missing opportunities. You're getting traffic there and you're allowing them to walk right out your virtual store without buying.
And I think, you need some, in all these pages, I think you need a place for them to fill out something, to raise their hand, or whether it's a text, whether it's a type in a form, where it's a click to call, whatever it is, something. I'm partial to Intaker right now because I've seen what it's doing, because it's got the video and it kind of narrows it down, and it seems like the more engagement, what I've seen with our mastermind members. I don't know what you're seeing with it, but
yes.
Not saying the other ones are bad. I just think I'm seeing more engagement with this one.
That's right. And Intaker's been doing a great job. And just for your listeners to make sure everyone's on the same page, typically there are 3 different ways people can convert through a law firm website. Telephone number is going to make the biggest percentage of those. You're going to then have live chat, where people are able to chat but not call, right? They're more loosely engaging with the firm, testing the waters. And that's the Intaker group. There are several other groups out there. Intaker they were one of the first, if not the first group to come out with more of a video that popped up, usually as the lawyer talking and engaging with that user, encouraging them to chat with a live operator. It's an incredible value add to the potential client, because they are not sure really what the next step should be. So it helps kind of guide them in. And then the third way would be a contact form, which is usually just a static, very like a fixed form asking for name, email, and details of the case type. But yes, we love that. In fact, if you don't have all three ways for someone to reach out, know that you're missing a certain demographic that prefers a contact form, or maybe they're at work. They're not in a position to chat or call. So you want to be able to cater to all of those, that range of potential clients. And leveraging live chat would be a great way. Intaker obviously would be a great way through video. Juvo Leads, there are a number of other groups out there that have been doing a good job with that feature. So beyond that, it's important to understand too that that's the foundation. That's where it starts. As you're looking to continue to grow and be more aggressive, Ken, to your point, if you're offering some kind of giveaway, like a downloadable ebook to guide someone through the 3 critical mistakes people make when trying to handle a car accident case themselves, just kind of winging that one. But if you're using something like that, ideally, you also have a system in place to be able to nurture that contact, where you don't just give away that content and then never reach out to them again. Have a way, either automated email or through a personal phone call, to make sure they answered all the questions they needed. Otherwise, you're going to miss out on an opportunity to get as much as you can. And that's really how firms continue to look to build out. Once you've established the foundation, there are a million different ways to spend money today and to attract business. And there's no one size fits all from what I've found. But I do know, big picture, a firm should focus on 2 big camps. One is lead generation. The other is brand building. They work extraordinarily well together from a marketing and advertising standpoint. But let me explain what I mean by that. Lead generation can mean a lot of different things. There are lead gen companies out there that probably a lot of listeners have used, or maybe still are actively using, where you pay to generate a lead or acquisition. And so those typically are going to be more expensive. In some instances, you're going to have to kiss a lot of frogs, if you will, to find the prince to sign the case. But that is an effort to get the wheels turning. The brand building side is much more of getting your brand out there. It's not always a direct, immediate conversion or a sales turn, but it's more so creating more awareness and trust of the brand. Pay-per-click ads, local services ads, these are digital advertising concepts that are much more in line with a sales activation or lead generation effort. And a lot of firms in the early stages lean heavily on the lead generation side because they don't have the brand to back them up. And so they're leaning on virtually any way possible to generate leads so that they can sign clients. As that begins to pick up, we call that the grinding phase. As you work through the grinding phase as a law firm and cash flow begins to pick up, you have a lot more comfort usually and ability to then start investing in brand. That's the formula that we recommend from our experience as the optimal way to build your business. Lean heavily into lead gen, then begin to, complement that with brand building to a point of, as you're growing and building brand, it is creating efficiency in your spend, in your sales activation spend. The more people know you, like you, and trust you, the easier it is for them to be able to click on your ad or to click on your organic result and convert. And so that's how it really starts to work together. So from a standpoint of, all right, on the complete other end of that spectrum, the aggressive firm, like, where do we want to be? The short answer, and I say this a lot, it's be everywhere. And I truly mean it. Is it realistic? Probably not. But the idea is everywhere you can possibly get your brand, you want to consider. And that's expensive. It's an expensive proposition to be on top, especially in a competitive marketplace like personal injury. And so that would be, from a digital standpoint, Ken, investing in creating ongoing fresh content. Usually that's in the form of video. If you have multiple attorneys in your office, encourage them to get behind the video bandwagon, because the more video you can create, the more personal connections you can make. Support that with ad spend. Have a strong strategy on social media that's uniquely tailored to the individual social media platform. Today, you have users on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, X, and you want to have a unique video strategy in most instances for those individual platforms. A lot of times we recommend, from a video standpoint, if you start with a broad video set, like a broad video around your brand with testimonials, covering maybe some FAQs, you start with that big shoot. Well, now you have mileage. You have the ability to recycle that content, create shorts out of it over the course of time. And that way you can get more in a routine as a law firm of producing that. But we believe we're in a digital world today. And so if you want to reach your people in your area, you have to go aggressively on the digital side, and you have to be able to find a way to connect that brand and UVP to the people. And video and organic, all these ways are great. But to be able to truly take it to the next level, you have to be willing to invest in the brand building side. What questions do you have from there, Ken, with respect to the sales activation versus the brand building?
I think I really like local service ads. I think some markets it's very prohibitive to do PPC. I mean, like the cost is just so high, like crazy high. And I think another thing too, that at the beginning, I think they need to be getting good, claim their Google business page and get some reviews, not all at one time, but a steady, like 2 or 3 a week. I mean, just keep piling them on. It's going to help you with the LSAs, the local service ads. It's going to help you get on the maps, which I think is free right now. I don't know how long it'll be free. You might know more about that than I do, but the deal is if they see you on LSA and then they see you in maps and then they see you organically, that's telling them something that you were talking about being everywhere. You want to be everywhere on the first page too, if you can, or whatever they call the first page now. I mean, it's kind of all one page, right? But you want to be at the top. Let me ask you this: the Google My Business page, is that what they call it now? Because I know it was one time that it was.
Yeah, Google Business Profile.
Good, yeah, I know it was changed names. I hadn't kept up with the time. But do you need to be adding stuff to that at the beginning, or is that later on?
I'm really glad you mentioned it, because I mean, that's a serious mistake, or not mistake, but I left that out in terms of a foundation. Because yes, I would argue today that Google Business Property, the Google Business Profile specifically for each of your office locations as a law firm, is just as important as your website. I believe that firmly. Now, does that change in 5 years as we continue to see some of these, generative search platforms pop up? Maybe. But right now, Google owns over 90% of the market share in search. So that's King Kong. That's the place to be focused as a top primary. And yes, Google Business Profile with reviews. Now, the big challenge for young law firms is that you don't have the clients. You don't have the volume to be able to get those reviews. And so be realistic, but be aggressive. Build incentives.
You can always get people that know you, that you're an honest guy or a good lawyer. They got to be past clients.
Bingo.
They don't represent that they're past clients. I mean,
that's exactly right. I mean, we want to do it with integrity and be stand up, but there's absolutely ways to be able to stimulate these reviews. I've seen it. Spoke with a firm earlier this week in his market, criminal defense firms starting to handle more volume on traffic tickets just to turn reviews. That's a business model that they've decided on. May seem crazy to some, but they found that that's helping influence other case types. So on the PI side, we've seen firms step into new markets with 0 reviews, go in and offer something of value to the community. Open the doors up to the office for a Saturday event where you're going to do a 2-hour workshop and you're going to explain and audit insurance coverage, auto insurance coverage to the people in your area. It's a free event. We've just opened our office. We're going to provide free lunch. And then at the end of it, if you feel like you've gotten value from this event, would you take time to talk about your experience with our firm today? That's a stand-up way. You've offered value. You've educated the marketplace. They've experienced your business. That is how firms are being aggressive, creative, and doing so with integrity today to be able to compete with those that are larger than them and probably even, more budgeted than them. So yes, find a way to do it. And it's not just, one big common mistake we see is firms will make a great push internally, and it's almost like they feel like they've exhausted all their efforts or their contacts. And you see good activity and then just a complete drop off in new reviews. And I would say from our experience and what we've seen with search rankings, the firms that have been able to keep their foot on the gas pedal, even if it's a modest number, like 1 review a week being added, those are the firms that are seeing the most steady increase in local rankings and overall traffic and conversions than the ones just getting a burst of 30 to 50 reviews and then nothing, crickets for the next several months.
So once you get this foundational stuff in and you start throwing content on there, and I love the videos. I mean, I really think we've talked about this before. If I had a law firm and had a website, I want a video on every section, like one on trucking, one on motorcycles, one on slip and falls, went on dog bites, I'd want one, at least one, not counting all the ones at FAQs, but I'd want one where I'm sitting there, or whoever the lawyer that handles those type of cases is explaining, the intricacies of this thing and what to watch out for, whatever. And I would have little ebooks on all of them. You know how I am. I think the more you tell them, the more you sell without selling. I don't know.
Yep. That is we're talking about continuing to just build on the foundation. And yes, that's the obvious place. Now that leans heavily on, in many instances, the partners or the attorneys within the law firm. And that's where you can often see bottlenecks. And so you want to be realistic with it, much like the reviews. Look at your video strategy as ongoing, and, start with a realistic number, a quota on what you can achieve, and hold yourself to that. It's a lot easier to build on that than to start aggressively and then you just fall off completely. So definitely video, find a way, on the advertising side, definitely YouTube. Lots of great ways today as well to kind of find the hybrid of traditional advertising, where you can get direct buys through Hulu and some of these other platforms to be able to increase your market awareness, and leveraging some of the video content you're producing.
And here's one tip,
mm-hmm.
and I do this with Pilma. I schedule an hour every month on the day that I open and go to a studio with a green screen. And I've got a little book. I've been writing down stuff. You can just write down questions people ask you for the last 30 days or whatever, or look at the keywords, and you can talk about that. But then I just sit down there and I just roll off some content. I'm just sitting there. I'm not reading from my teleprompter. I got my book down there. I'm looking, okay. I just talk about, if I was a lawyer, if I was a practicing lawyer, I'd just probably talk about crazy shit I've seen, where people really screwed up their case, or where something went bad, or they didn't have enough insurance, they didn't have underinsured, things that could just, why trucking cases are different than just a regular case because of all the federal regulations and the black box, and why motorcycle cases are different, because people got biases. You need somebody who understands motorcycles. I don't know. I would just do all that stuff and just keep rolling it in there, man, and just send it to somebody to edit, whether you hire somebody in the Philippines and pay them, $600-700 a month, or whether you just go to Upwork and just do it by project, or do it Fiverr. I mean, I don't know. I mean, it's not that hard to find people. A college kid taking a major at film or something, or marketing at the local college. There's a lot of different ways.
And that's the thing, is don't overthink it. A lot of law firms get excited. They get all the way to the point of actually implementing, and they don't even shoot. I can assure you, if you're shooting, there are editors out there. Call us. We can at least guide you in that process if need be, but that's not what's going to stop this from being successful. What's going to stop it from being successful would be the attorneys not doing it. It's the framework. Have an intro and outro, and most any credible editor out there will be able to edit that content and put that intro and outro for your brand. And it's a quality impression, quality experience. And I'll say too, Ken, when you were talking about that, just a flow you found that's been healthy in creating video, think about when you're looking to create a video for each practice area, really consider that intake process for people dealing with that particular issue. And think about, what are the common mistakes you've personally experienced? What are the common questions that they're asking in that situation? What are the questions that they would have wished you would have asked? Looking back, these are things that you can naturally talk about, and that creates trust and credibility just by sharing things that someone hasn't even considered yet. It's going to make them feel much more comfortable in the process. It shows them you've been there before, and they're going to be much more inclined to pick up the phone and call, which is naturally, that's the whole point of all of this, right, is to make them connect with your firm.
Good deal. So what else do we need to do as we get more money? Say we got out those 3 lawyers and got good cash flow. What do we need to do now?
I would continue to invest heavily into brand building techniques. The more places you can get your brand, the more awareness you're going to have. Now, again, there are a lot of different places for this, and there's no one size fits all. But to kind of bring this full circle, the only way you or your marketing provider is going to know where to go next is through watching the data, monitoring the data. And the data can mean a lot of different things to a lot of different people, but what I'm referring to specifically would be leads and cases. What are the influences you're seeing as you are growing or as you're layering on new marketing techniques? This means, in most instances, having at least a basic lead management software, some process internally where every lead that comes in your firm is being documented, and every time possible, noting the source of those leads. Now, we can get into a deep discussion about attribution and how today attribution is becoming very, very difficult. Attribution is being able to connect where that lead came from. A lot of times today, people have already heard about you 20 times before they actually reach out and call you.
Yeah.
So they may have driven by your billboard 3 times this week already, and now they go to your website and convert. So it's so important to understand that attribution is never going to be perfect, but I can promise you it's never going to be good unless you put an effort and an intentionality around the intake side to collect as much information as you can about how they heard about you and what influenced them to pick up the phone and call today.
So I got 2 questions
Yeah.
that got nothing to do with what we've been talking about today, but it does. It does.
Okay.
So I saw where Google got sued by the U.S. government for antitrust violations.
Mm-hmm.
If they do what they did to Exxon or the telephone companies years ago, what do you see happening? I mean, are they going to split them up and break them into like 5 different Googles? I don't know. I have no idea, but I'm just saying. Or do you think they're so big, like the bank's too big to fail? I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I can speculate. My personal opinion is that they're not going to crumble Google, at least the Google entity itself. Alphabet is the parent company there, and Google is one piece of that, but it's a big piece of that, billions of dollars piece of that.
They
And
own
so,
YouTube too.
that's right, exactly. So, is there a chance where those start getting divided and there's less oversight between all of those as the mother? Potentially. And does that make a longer term impact? Very likely. I would say still today, based on the lens we can look through as of, August 2024, Google's not going to crumble quickly if they do crumble. They have so much market share. They've crafted, people say, go Google it, even if they're using a different search engine, right? So they've branded themselves so well, Googling and searching is synonymous.
Yeah.
And so does that go away overnight? No way.
It's like getting a Kleenex.
Bingo.
Bingo. It's a tissue. It's not a Kleenex. Kleenex is a brand.
That's
but
right.
They did a pretty damn good job, didn't they?
That's exactly right.
Then my last question is, I want to revisit this AI. We've talked about this before, but creating content with AI. I mean, what are you seeing out there? I mean, I keep hearing rumblings, hey, it's okay. Google said it was all right, but then I hear people swearing it when they start doing AI content, they're not doing as good.
That's what we're seeing as well, that firms that are relying heavily on AI generated content, their search rankings are going south. They're not going up. And so, Google has publicly stated they originally came out and said no AI content. Then they came out and they loosened that. They kind of doubled down on, if you're producing content, whether it's human generated or AI generated, if it's of value to users, and they're actually using it and consuming it, then that's what they're after. That's what they want to reward. Well, that's a pretty generic response around it, especially when they're evaluating it algorithmically to assess every website and all these unique user experiences. What we're seeing, though, is that firms leaning heavily on AI generated content, even if it's 30%, 50% AI generated, and they're still tweaking, there are still fingerprints of AI. Like you just do a Google search for AI checker, AI content checker. There are a lot of free tools out there. Run some of that content through and you're going to see, especially if it's AI generated, it's being picked up. And may I suggest, if a free tool that you're using online without even a user account can do that, don't you think Google can evaluate that as well? And they can assess that algorithmically? Absolutely. So by no means, like our company policy at Consultwebs right now, we do not recommend AI generated content on your legal website. We believe and have always believed that it is so important to invest in a quality experience, to do well vetted research around the law, around your area, around your prospective client, and cater that content to them. Now, that doesn't mean you shouldn't use or you cannot use AI in that process. And that's often the misconception. We don't want to use the technology to produce the content. because we believe humans still have the ability to emotionally connect through writing, through content, and telling stories. That's difficult to do with AI. But what you can use AI for is competitive research, competitive gaps, identifying of these competitors, what content do they have that we don't have? And then when you start drilling down and identifying gaps of content that you can add to your website, then you can use AI to research these topics, to be able to give ideas, to ideate, and even to be able to run your custom written content through AI to offer suggestions to make it more readable or to improve optimization techniques within this body of content. These are all ways that you can leverage AI to shorten the time to get to the end result and still increase the end product quality. And that's the biggest thing, is use the tool as it is, not as a standalone, as an independent, or as a way to replace a human, but rather leverage your talent and your strong writers who know how to captivate audiences, capture attention, leverage the technology to help them do it faster and better. That's our stance on it. And that's what we believe is the future. I mean, there's no question we can have an exponential increase in content online and it create zero added value to the web as it is today. And what value is that? So that's the way I would look at it from the standpoint of your website. Like, if anybody can produce AI generated content on their legal websites, why would it make sense for you to do that just to compete toe to toe with AI? You have to create something unique, which is a big reason why we're stressing the video concept as well, because that's something only you personally can do with your brand, your unique value proposition. And that's what's winning into the future.
Good deal. Anything else you want to add before we close?
You know, I mentioned the leads piece earlier and being able to track the cases being signed, but to come back to that one and just close that one, it's be accountable to what you're doing when you're layering on, especially in the brand building. Have objective goals set out, what we refer to as SMART goals. Be specific with them, push yourself, but come back to them. And sometimes certain branding aspects do very little to influence conversion. If you're not hearing it being mentioned in your intake, you're not seeing direct leads coming from that source. As you're growing and as you're looking to be everywhere, sometimes it makes sense to pull from this, pool of funds and apply it to this other area where it's effective, people are talking about it. And so the only way you're going to do that, again, is through being accountable to looking at the data, monitoring the leads, especially monitoring the cases, and continuing to work to optimize that whole process from marketing to intake to conversion. Following that, is it easy all the time? Of course not. There's ups and downs in that process, but being accountable to it will most certainly increase your ability to get return on investment time after time.
Good deal. Well, thank you so much. If somebody wants to contact you or Consultwebs, what's the best way to get up with you, Tanner?
Sure. Yeah. Visit our website, consultwebs.com, and you can learn about us there or find our phone number, give us a call. We'd be more than happy to provide a strategic consultation.
All right. Sounds great, man. Well, that was interesting. I like that. And it's funny, I've talked to several lawyers that are getting ready to start practices, that they're leaving their firms, and I hope they listen to this. Mm-hmm. It would be good for them, really would. All right, until next time, this is Ken Hardison, dedicated to your success.
You have been listening to the Grow Your Law Firm podcast, the podcast that leads lawyers to more growth, profit, and freedom. Go to growyourlawfirm.com to find more ways to market and manage your law firm. Please leave us a rating and review wherever you listen to your podcasts.